straight out of moonlight, straight out of moonlight.
The Broncos are now on the clock. Now that the pick's in, let's go to Adam. Adam, what can you tell us about this guy?
The foundation of any good team starts up front, and here's a guy who's a franchise's dream come true. GMs I talked to pointed to several of his games in college where he took on some of the nation's best defensive linemen, going toe-to-toe with them for 60 minutes of brutal trench combat and dominating them. He's going to be able to protect the franchise quarterback in addition to opening up holes for the run game. With size, speed, and strength, he should have a very successful NFL career.
Adam, what can you tell us about that last pick?
While you wouldn't normally be surprised to see a quarterback winning the Heisman, it's his electric style of play on the field that makes him a little more intriguing versus previous Heisman-winning quarterbacks. He was one of the most exciting players to watch in all of college football, making plays with his arm and his feet. He's an escape artist, turning would-be sacks into dazzling touchdown throws. He's going to need to learn to operate more in the pocket in the NFL, but I'm excited to see what this Heisman winner will do for his new team.
Don't make me beg, don't make me wait. I need to hold in the darkness of the night. And when I stray.
Let's go to Adam now, who has more on the Bears' last pick.
He's one of the few receivers in college that no matter what sort of coverage you threw at him, he always came away with the ball. A great example is one of his impressive touchdown catches that has been on highlight reels ever since. It was late in the game, and the defense knew who the quarterback was going to target. He was surrounded by 3 defenders when his quarterback put the ball in the air. And even though he was completely swamped, somehow he managed to pluck the ball right over the defenders' heads. He isn't the biggest receiver, but he has the ability to stretch and make the play, essentially making him a larger and taller target and a real threat in the red zone. I think this team got a possible difference maker at receiver.
Our very own Adam Schefter has more to say about this pick.
Well, there isn't much to say other than this kid was born to run. He's the spitting image of his father, a nationally ranked sprinter in several major events and highly recruited by every major college. However, unlike his dad, he chose to pursue a career in football, and so far that decision is paying off. He may not be gold medal fast, but he has the speed and quickness to cause fits for the opposing team. He's the type of player you like to see out in the open field where he can make moves a lot of other players can't. The coaches are going to love having his speed at their disposal.
Eagles have made their selection. For more about him, let's go to Adam Schefter.
He was an offensive lineman that didn't get a lot of attention in the draft process until after the All-Star game. He was matched up against one of the top defensive linemen in the draft this year, and he straight up stonewalled him. They were calling blitz and showing heavy fronts all game, but he had him blocked step for step the whole game. It was the kind of performance that can send a lineman's draft stock skyrocketing, and it looks to have earned him a spot on the team. We'll see if he can be the blocker the team expects him to be after shutting down one of the better defensive linemen in this class.
Running free, running wild, never running out of style. Got the fight, got the stuff.
The Browns are now on the clock.
We make the rules. Break 'em when we want to. As long as we're together, we'll stay young forever. Forever. Young forever.
Pick's been made. Let's go to Adam Schefter to hear more about the player.
A college All-Star Game MVP trophy capped off an illustrious career for him. The performance was especially sweet, as many critics had criticized him for not performing well against top-tier defenses while in college. Breaking the 100-yard barrier and scoring twice against the top players in the country had critics changing their tune. He's now going to be expected to get the ball 20 to 30 times a game against some elite NFL defenses. It will be a steep learning curve for him, but sources tell me several GMs feel he's up to the challenge.
We know we are brighter than all the stars. As long as we're together, we'll stay young forever. We make the rules. Break 'em when we want to. As long as we're together, we'll stay young forever. Forever. Young forever. We'll stay young forever. Unwinding every moment, like the clock is broken. Never stopping, never slowing. Yeah, we're living wide open. Unwinding every moment, like the clock is broken. Never stopping, never slowing. Yeah, we're living wide open. We know we are
The Steelers are now on the clock.
stars. As long as we're together, we'll stay young forever.
All right, let's go to Adam Schefter, who's got more on this pick.
He flashed two things at the Combine that immediately got everyone's attention. He flashed both straight line speed and the ability to turn on a dime without losing a step. But what he also did was impress each team with his football knowledge and personality during interviews. One GM in particular told me that he had a rare ability to draw up schemes and coverages as if he had them memorized. The combination of his speed and knowledge of the game made him one of the more coveted defensive backs in this year's draft. He should become a young leader for this defense. Time it all.
The light is going down and the weekend's here. Save my soul. Who's all baby? Who's all baby?
I got a lot on my mind, I got a lot on my plate. I got a couple of trouble, I got some money to waste. I put the tricks on the you put your on the car. It's like a weekend at Bernie's, and baby, you look the part. I'm about to get it poppin', call a Uber, cause I'm a scuba. Dive while he driving, shawty rockin', and I maneuver. I know you like it when I put it, yeah. Maybe you should bring a friend along, yeah. Now, I got paper, and I ain't gon' chase you, baby. I'm gon' take you down.
Adam, what can you tell us about the Raiders' newest player?
A high-flying, hard-hitting defensive back, he was the subject of much criticism earlier this year after being unable to put together consistent performances week to week. Consistency doesn't even do the roller coaster of emotions he went through justice. A better description may have been puzzling. After turning in an exceptional performance in Week 1 with 2 picks, he was downright terrible in Week 2, being burned for 3 touchdowns. Week 3 saw him force a fumble and return it for a touchdown, and then Week 4 saw him get beat on plays that led to critical scores and a close loss. The pendulum continued to swing both ways throughout the entire year, prompting one scout I spoke with to nickname him the Enigma. This pick could have a huge upside, providing this coaching staff has the patience for him to develop into a much more consistent player.
You one in a million if you the one that I like. You got a lot of glad I knew you. I brought a ruler. I'ma use it, play the music louder. I gotta do it now. I got paper and I ain't gon' chase you, baby. I'm gon' take you down now. Come on, shake it, baby. Turn that around. I'm like,
Oh my Lord. coming, troubles in the air. Oh my Lord, the light is going down and the weekend is here. Save my soul. Who's on with me now? Who's on with me now?
Take it up another notch and make it drop it and never take it down. Take it down. 30-something thousand watching, show me something, baby.
Who's on with me now? Who's on with me now?
How do we fall in love? Harder than a bullet could hit ya. How do we fall apart? Faster than a hairpin trigger. Don't you say, don't you
The Redskins are now on the clock.
say, don't you say, one breath, it'll just break it. So shut your mouth and run me like a river. Shut your mouth, baby, stand and deliver. Holy hands, pull and make me a sinner. Like a river, like a river. Shut your mouth and run me like a river. Choke this love till the veins start to shiver. One last breath till the tears start to wither. Like a river, like a river. Shut your mouth and run me like a river. Tales of an endless ride. Cursed is a fool who's willing. Can't change the way we are. One kiss away from killing. Don't you say, don't you say it. Don't say, don't you say it. One breath, it'll just break it. So shut your mouth and run me like a river. Shut your mouth, baby, stand and deliver. Holy hands, pull and make me a sinner. Like a river, like a river. Shut your mouth and run me like a river. Choke this love till the veins start to shiver. One last breath till the tears start to wither. Like a river, like a river. Shut your mouth and run me like a river. Like a river, like a river. Like a river, like a river. Like a
The 49ers are now on the clock.
Shut your mouth and run me like
The Packers are now on the clock.
Shut your mouth, baby, stand and deliver. Holy hands, pull and make me a sinner. Like a river, like a river. Shut your mouth and run me like a river. Choke this love till the veins start to shiver. One last breath till the tears start to wither. Like a river, like a river. Shut your mouth and run me like a river.
Do some crazy.
I wanna live like it's Mardi Gras and go dumb with my whole squad and don't need no R&R to regular life. I say au revoir. Hey, living life in the fast lane. May your pain only be. So please.
The Giants are now on the clock.
vibes only. I just tapped, I'ma fill my cup. Got fireworks, let's blow some up. Tonight I'm going stupid, doing things I've never done. We all got one thing in common, we just wanna have fun. Hey, do what you wanna do. Do what you wanna do. I think I'm gonna do something crazy. Come by, bring a rack. New grill and a bunch of snacks. And where we going, you don't need a map, you don't need a nap, you don't need jack. Except lots of people, some very loud speakers, cold drinks and good. Join me, one thing, good vibes only. I just tapped.
The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
Fireworks.
The Buccaneers have made their selection. What can we tell you about them? That's why we have Adam Schefter.
He always flashed the potential to be a playmaking defensive back in college, but scouts never saw that ability during the offseason. He didn't look confident catching the ball in reaction drills, and when he did, it took a second before he turned and ran downfield. He has the tools to be a good defender in this league, but he may not be the impact player people thought he would be immediately. We'll see if he can ever develop into that for this team.
Something wild. Be someone different. Switch up the style. Okay. Do something crazy.
The Steelers are now on the clock.
Break it down.
Let's go to Adam now, who's got more on the Steelers' last pick.
I'm not surprised to see him taken with this pick, given he was probably one of the most dominant defensive linemen in college this season. His combination of athleticism and set of pass rush moves gave college offensive linemen fits and gave him a leg up on the rest of the competition. Pass rushers are at a premium in the NFL these days, and when someone with his talent is available, you need to take him. If his performance this season is any indication, he has the potential to be a playmaker on the defensive line for years to come.
I think about to do it. I think about to do it. Do something crazy. Do what you wanna do. Do something crazy. Do something crazy. Do something wild. Be someone different. Switch up the style. Do something crazy. Do something wild. Be someone different. Switch up the style. Do something crazy. Do something wild. Do something crazy. Do something wild.
All right, team is now off the clock. Adam Schefter, can you tell us about their newest player?
Setting a single-game team record for tackles for loss, he's quickly earned a reputation as a fearsome defensive lineman with a devastating rip move. Ross Tucker had him ranked as the top defensive line prospect in this year's draft, saying there aren't even many current NFL offensive linemen with the quickness and footwork needed to neutralize him one-on-one at the line. Adding depth on the defensive line is always a positive, and when you can add an impact player of his caliber, you've set up your defense for immediate success.
Used to draw, hard to admit that I used to draw. Portraiture in a human form, doodle of a two-headed unicorn. It was soothing, moving his arm in a fusion of man-made tools and amused from beyond. Even if it went beautifully wrong, it was tangible truth for a youth to refuse to belong. No name nuisance, who's in a bedroom, who's in a brand new cuneiform. Barely commune with the horde, got a whole grayscale ungluing his world. Might zone amp to the yap of the magpie, unseen hand dragging his graphite. Cross contour, a little bit of backlight, black ink after a Bristol to baptize. You can imagine a rush that ensue when you get three dimensions stuffed in a two. Then it's off to a school where it's all you can do, being trained and observed by a capable few. Back in New York by peeps and a dog in a two-bedroom doing menial jobs. Plus, rhyming and stealing and being a clod, distractions, freedom, a rod. I left some years of giving a light, I left some will the spirit away. I let my fears materialize, I let my skills deteriorate. Haunted by the thought of what I should have been, continuing a mission that was rooted in a 20-year affinity and rickety condition with an ID crisis. Snap on the front lawn, look up in the sky, it's shapes falling out of the fringe. All heart though we would have made cowardly kings. They will chop you down just to count your rings, just to count your rings, just to count your rings. And now we're colors pouring out of the fringe. All heart though we would have made cowardly kings. They will chop you down just to count your rings.
The Browns are now on the clock.
Just to count your rings. Used to paint, hard to admit that I used to paint. Natural light on a human face, stenciled fire in his roommate's face. It was bloom and addiction, a miss and a push and a pigment. Book like a tattooed pigskin look. Pinhead kids in a minute.
The Panthers are now on the clock.
I grew up in a linseed oil ever linen. Joy to the poison, voice to the resin. Capture a map of a gesture. Back up, add a little accurate fat to the figure. Redo that, move that inward. Zinc white lightning shoots from his fingers. Studios strewn with illusion and tinctures. Stay tuned for the spooky adventures. You can imagine the stars that align when a forearm starts foreshortening right, or a torso hung on a warping spine. If a portion reads as warm and alive. Routine day with a dirt cheap brush. Then a week goes by and it goes untouched. Then 2, then 3, then a month, and the rest of your life to beat yourself up. I left some seasons eager to fall. I left some work to bury your life. I let my means of being dissolve. I let my person curl up and die. Eating up his innards and unfeasible anxiety is brutally committed to relinquishing his privacy, aligning with the trials of the anti-Midas. Snap on the back lawn, look up in the sky, it's shapes falling out of the fringe. All heart though we would have made cowardly kings. They will chop you down just to count your rings. Just to count your rings. Just to count your rings. And there were colors pouring out of the fringe. All heart though we would have made cowardly kings. They will chop you down just to count your rings. Just to count your rings. Just to count your rings.
The Patriots are now on the clock. Let's go to Adam now, who's got more on the Patriots' last pick.
This kid is an explosive defensive talent. Sadly for fans of college football, his career came to an abrupt end after he suffered a grade 3 groin tear while attempting to make a tackle. After surgery, weeks of intensive, platelet-rich plasma therapy, and months of strength training of the affected area, he looked like his old self when he took the field for his pro day. Some scouts in attendance even felt as though he looked stronger and faster than before the injury. I'd expect him to get reps with the first-team defense come training camp, and don't be surprised to see him starting in week 1.
The Cowboys are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The 49ers are now on the clock. The Jets are now on the clock. The Bears are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Browns are now on the clock. The Jaguars are now on the clock.